Which alien species do you find most interesting?
What a lovely question.
It's a really good question.
The mantises.
The ones I am with.
I tend to think more of like interdimensional.
The Nordics are fascinating.
The Nordics.
Tall blondes that look like humans.
The ones that look like us.
I attended a conference for UFO enthusiasts called Contact in the Desert. While there, I was able to ask a few of the best researchers in the field about my favorite topic. And if you want to see the full versions of these interviews, I'll be posting them for free on my Patreon account. Link in the description.
So you got the Greys. Are they a species that evolved on a planet? And this is the version of a sentient animal there? It's possible. But my guess is it's more complicated.
So first of all, there do seem to be a lot of reports of what we might call the Greys, short little guys, big black eyes. They seem to be adhering to some mandate or operative when it comes to making these incisions, inserting microchips.
The functionaries doing the experiments, the anal probes, all that stuff.
You know, collecting genetic material. They often repeat, do not fear, or things like that. I don't believe that it's all just some cultural phenomenon. We do know that, like in the early years of abduction research, these early people were pulling these types of descriptions out long before it was really part of our cultural zeitgeist.
There are several sizes, which means they may have some significant differences.
Yep.
Right? And they're versions of the basic gray that we know.
Yeah.
The classic one is the one on Whitley Strieber's Communion book.
I don't think that they are as fixed in their bodies as we are. In other words, they can, with training, a human being can sometimes learn how to leave their body. I've done that a few times, and you have too, I'm sure. But the Greys, I think, can enter and leave them at will, easily. And I think in that sense, we're similar in that we have souls that are connected to the physical. And that may be part of why they're here. But they're the most interesting to me because they're interested in me.
And then they seem sort of hominid in some ways. And so it brings up these ontologically interesting questions. Are they sort of, a la your great Twitter post, some von Neumann replicator, part of some kit deployed by a more advanced extraterrestrial civilization? Are they robotic droids? Or are they us from the future?
But I suspect that those little Greys are functionaries that are robots, that are synthetic beings that are created to do work, as opposed to the actual ET, or if that's what they are.
I have had a brief encounter with one of the Nordics who proceeded to tell me the Greys were extremely dangerous and stay away from them. But the Greys are mine, my main ones.
But how about the Nordics? They look like humans, only better looking.
Where are they from? Do you have human beings like evolve on another planet that look exactly like us, that can fit in?
There is no way that on another planet in a full evolutionary cycle, you get a Swedish model. No way. And so they have a huge amount of our DNA.
If you're just adhering to normal astronomy, Occam's razor would say that's not right, because you have all these different, atmospheric conditions, and, if you're in another planet, the likelihood of evolutionary convergence. I mean, we know now there's silicon-based life. So even just the idea of carbon-based life, let alone, we have 8 million species on Earth, 20 are, I think, upright and bipedal or something. So what do they look like?
Blonde, muscular, perfect body, human-looking entities that had kind of a different eye feature.
They're generally a specific age, 30, 35, perfect features, but I've heard they've got these blue piercing eyes.
The Theosophical Society in the late 19th century, people like Madame Blavatsky, and what is the first root race? There are, 7 root races or whatever. I believe the second is the Lemurians. I believe the third is the Atlanteans. The first root race is the Hyperboreans. These sort of tall, white, Earth conscientious creatures or whatever.
Is there a story in particular that comes to mind when thinking of these human-looking ones?
Well, no, I think it would be probably, in my case, Betty Andreasson. And there's lots of reasons for it. First, Betty's story is so compelling. Betty had heard and repeated what she thought was star language. In other words, it was not an intelligible language to her. But when I read it and then listened to the transcript, it was very clear that it had something to do with Gaelic. But it wasn't Gaelic. It was something like Gaelic, and I found an expert in the UK, as I recall, and he said it was a very old form of Gaelic and that it meant, children of the northern people, you wander in eternal darkness. And that has been a kind of byword of mine ever since.
I don't know. There are a few, like there's the Ingo Swan at the supermarket, saying this woman is ravishing. And I believe she was kind of this tall, blonde, beautiful woman.
There's two of them that happened in the same year, and that's Travis Walton, that I believe 100%. And then there's the Billy Meyer story that I believe at 30%.
The Nordics really first appeared with the Billy Meyer work and case, and that's a very, very, very complicated case.
And then, of course, something we experienced together that our audiences will see at some point is Charles Hall, who spoke to the tall whites, spent a lot of time with them, but also the Nordic people with the 24 teeth.
I'll tell you, I have two, I call them bookend stories. They go perfectly together.
I was following Timothy Good, Above Top Secret. That was like my research encyclopedia for Making Out of the Blue. And then I don't remember if he talks about it in a book or if it was a subsequent interview, but he talks about him seeing one and then communicating telepathically. And Timothy Good, in my book, was a very credible guy. He's a prolific writer and considered to be a really good researcher. So that kind of got my attention a little bit about 20 years ago.
2008 or 2009, I was at some place in Vegas. I'm talking to an Army colonel, retired colonel, who had a lot of experience with black projects. He was a brilliant guy. And he told me a story about he and his wife was with him when he told the story. And they had another friend, a female friend, and they were at a Las Vegas casino. And he said, this guy, by the way, knew a lot about the UFO subject. But he said, we're on our own time. We're hanging out at a casino. I think it was the Wynn, actually, which is a great casino hotel, but I can't recall. He said, we're up there. We're on the second floor. And our friend, he said was a psychic, she stops two of them and she says, that woman over there is not human. And they look over and there's this very beautiful blonde woman in a striking blue outfit. Now, it's Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You get that there.
Sure. Blue is interesting, too.
Oh, yes. She and his wife get scared, and they go down the escalator, which is right there. The colonel is hanging behind, and he's looking at this woman, and he said to me, and that's when I heard her in my mind. She turned slightly, and he said, I heard her. She sounded like a cop on the beat, like, nothing to see here. Go about your business. You don't belong. And it's like, how did I get that thought? And at that moment, she's joined by this beautiful blonde man wearing blue. Again, are you thinking Cirque du Soleil? I don't know what this could be. But so they're hanging out. They're conferring. He doesn't hear anything at this point. So then they start walking toward the escalator where he is. So this guy is a colonel. He has a PhD. He's a sharp guy. And he's thinking, I am going to talk to these people. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to talk to them. I want to find out what the hell is going on here. So they walk toward him, and instead he says nothing. They get on the escalator, they go down, but then he gets behind them. And he said to me, I heard them conversing in their minds. I said, do you know that they weren't talking? He says, look, I'm pretty damn sure they weren't talking. I'm hearing it. What were they saying? Well, they were saying something like, yeah, he can hear us. No, he's not important. He's not part of the program, or he's not part of anything we need to worry about. At this point, his wife interjected in the story. She was hilarious. She's like, oh yes, I remember this. My friend and I were peeking around the slot machines like this. like hiding behind the slot machine. So that was kind of nice little confirmation there. But anyway, so the couple gets down to the bottom of the escalator and they walk out and they're gone. So then the three of them are conferring and they're like, that was crazy. So the woman, the psychic friend, also did regressive hypnosis. And she says, I could regress you, Colonel, so that maybe you can relax and maybe you can remember if there's anything more that you can remember about what you think you heard. I guess that was the plan. So he's like, all right, cool. So he goes a day or two later. He's at her place in this cul-de-sac, quiet neighborhood. And he said, every time that she tried to regress me, we heard like construction noise outside, like jackhammers. They would go out to look and they didn't see anything. So he says, no biggie. I'll be back in about a month. Maybe we can get together and do this then. She's like, great. So a month later, he calls her. He says, hey, I'm going to be in town. Can we do that regression? She says, what regression? The regression last month, Las Vegas. Apparently, she remembered nothing of this encounter. I have one more story that I have to tell you.
And then in 2010, I had just put out a film called I Know What I Saw, which was a 2-hour special I sold to History Channel. And I got an email from Robert Bigelow. And it said, it was actually from his secretary. It said, this is Secretary, Mr. Bigelow wanted me to reach out on his behalf that congratulations on a job well done with your doc. Wow. Robert Bigelow? Whoa. I emailed back like, hey, would he like to get together or like maybe lunch or dinner, discuss, kind of some of my next moves? Little did I know at the time, he had just signed a contract just a couple years earlier, right? With OSAP and ATIP. And, yeah, sure. He'd love to meet you. Come to his house. So I went to his house, 2009, 2010. I'd have to look it up the emails somewhere around there. And, we had lunch and he started talking about, the implications of disclosure, the impacts on society. I remember him saying, you take every scandal from Iran-Contra to Monica Lewinsky, all these scandals in the history of modern history and multiply them, the impact those have had, multiply that by 1 million. And that's the impact, this reality would have on the general public. And I remember thinking, come on, really? You really think so? I've always thought we really had this unifying effect on everybody. And then he goes, and they're walking among us. And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean they're walking among us? He goes, I mean exactly that. They're walking among us. I had something happen to me a couple years earlier, which I've never spoken about ever because I would know. And even that, when that happened, I didn't talk to anybody about it. No one. And even when he told me that, I still didn't talk about it because I had saw something one time in 2007.
So 2 years later, I'm in Erie, Pennsylvania. I got my table. I'm selling my little books to him, I think. And this very nice lady, she's about 60, walks up to my table with her husband. And she says, I got a story for you. Can I tell you? Like, yeah. So she says, when I was 15 years old, it would be about 1965, I was in church in Western Pennsylvania in a tiny little town with my mother. And she said, in our town, everyone knew everyone, especially in church. So she's in church. So she said, in front of me, in front of the aisle ahead of us, were this blonde couple, male, female, come walking in. She says they were absolutely gorgeous. They looked like supermodels. She said they had this incredible blue clothing. I was looking at the fabric. She's a 15-year-old girl, so she's into fashion. She said, I have never seen such incredible, beautiful clothing. And she's marveling and thinking, why is no one else in this church looking at these two people? She said they stuck out like a sore thumb. It's like, Marilyn Monroe and, Cary Grant.
How could you not stare at them?
Yeah. So, but no one was noticing them apparently. And then she said to me, and that's when I heard them in my mind. And what she heard was one of them thinking to the other, something like, well, we appear to be fitting in pretty well here. And she's like, and then one of them, maybe the same one, I don't know, said, except for the girl behind us who can hear us. And that's when she's like practically freaking out. After that, she heard nothing. It's like they shut it down. The other thing she said about them is that they're in mass and they didn't really know how to, this is a Catholic mass, which I grew up doing. You know, sit, kneel, sign of the cross, all that. They're like looking around. They don't know what to do. So they clearly did not fit in.
Just trying to fit in.
Right. So it gets better. So she goes through the whole mass. Mass ends. The couple is up and out. And they book it out of the church. And she decides, I'm going after them. And she's following. They go down this hill. There's a field. And there's a wooded area. So they're not going to a parking lot or a car. So that's kind of interesting too. Let's just like note that little bit. So she's going across the field. She's going down the hill. And then she stops dead in her tracks. She said, then I saw a third person at the entrance of the wooded area. She says, remember Lurch from the Addams Family?
No.
Looked just like that guy.
Terrifying.
Very tall, like a man in black, but very tall, kind of ungainly tall, hat and a black suit, apparently. And this beautiful blonde supermodel couple from Venus or Pleiades or wherever they're from walked past him into the woods. Into the woods. He turns around and follows them. And that was her story.
I made eye contact with this individual, and it was like an immediate, and I'd never really like considered this even in the realm of possibility. And I still don't know what I think, to be honest with you, what I really believe at the end of the day. But we had a telepathic, just like that.
Can you describe what the situation was and what this individual looked like?
I don't know if I want to go public fully on where it was, but it happened in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah. And the individual looked like relatively a normal person. And the individual, I remember, was doing like moving a chair or something like that. And this individual sensed that I was looking at him for whatever reason, kind of doing this, like maybe dragging a chair, and then turned around and looked me right in the eyes. And it was like, holy shit. Like in myself, I wasn't scared, but it was like you're not human. Like, but it was really, the individual knew that was the communication that the individual gave to me and knew that I had received it. And
it knew that you knew.
Yes. Yes. Like in an instant. And I knew, it knew, and I was okay. Big blue, like electric blue eyes, like piercing, like freeze in your tracks when you got when I made eye contact. I never told a soul because I'd sound like a crazy guy. And I don't know I don't even know what I saw.
So
I'm just telling you that was the communication that happened, and it happened like that, like that. And I wasn't scared.
What did they look like?
The eyes?
No, what did the person look like? Was
like
it
a normal person, dark skin?
Yeah.
Relatively. Not sure of the ethnicity. I'm not
wasn't
sure.
Swedish or anything. Wasn't like Scandinavian.
No.
Tall, particularly. Do you remember?
No, not tall.
Just
no,
regular
normal.
looking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What made you look in that direction?
I don't know. And I just remember it was like, you know, and it was immediate.
And you knew.
Immediate communication. Just fucking bam, like that. And I wasn't scared. And then I went about my business and I never talked about it.
But it stuck with you.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah. But I didn't believe it. I didn't even believe it. You see my point? Like, I didn't believe that happened to me. But then I'm hearing other people talk about it, you know, Timothy Good, and then Bigelow, the alleged encounter in the desert from 1994, Nellis test range that Mr. Sands talks about. I don't know. Did it happen? Do these things happen? Are they walking among us? I don't know.
The Travis one is the one I consider to be the most important. When he got from a distance, they look 100% like humans. But the closer he got, he said, and I looked at this one person. He was very close to him. And he said the eyes gave him away right away that he was not human. So that totally got my attention because I thought that is very peculiar to have this faction of the story of Travis Walton, who I think has proven himself through the years with lie detector tests and collaborative witness accounts that he did have an experience, and he insisted of these tall, human-looking blonde beings that were there, 2 males and 1 female.
Crazy strong too.
Very strong.
They were like even the women.
Even the
like,
woman
holding him down effortlessly.
He's a 6'2",
big guy.
Big guy. Very at the time he was he's in the top of his shape at that time. So he said I was very strong, and they were able to move me very easily, like if it was a mechanical thing moving him. So that means they're stronger.
They also had the wildest, most sci-fi feature about them, other than the suits they were wearing. They had fish bowls.
Fish bowls.
Now this is something straight out of the Jetsons.
Yeah.
And the only reason I found that intriguing is because there is another case in the UK of a lady seeing a saucer just hanging in the air, and the occupants, being blonde,
that's right,
also had fish bowls.
That's right.
All I can describe, this huge Mexican hat. It was stationary, this thing, and it was bright silver in colour, and it had a dome. A dome. It was tilted to sort of... I could see the occupants in it.
You saw people in it?
I saw people in it. There were 2 people in there. These people were beautiful people. That's the only way I can describe them. They had long golden hair, like a page boy bob, just like the old kings. You used to see photographs of the old kings. And the colour of the hair was golden. Now, I was really...
What were they dressed in?
They had a sort of a polo neck jumper affair, like a ski top suit, in pale blue. Now, these people weren't sat one behind the other. They were sat together, but this, whatever it was tilted so that I could see them and they could see me. They had beautiful faces. I shall never forget their faces as long as I live. Their foreheads seemed to be a bit larger than, the bottom of their faces as normal people you would expect to see. But maybe this was just whatever they had round their heads, which was like a transparent fishbowl. And they just looked. And I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although my mind was ticking over. And they looked so sympathetic.
But it's the mantises that seem to be calling the shots. So I'm very interested in them. And the personal side of it is, I dig mantises. So I had this, I have a mantis sanctuary at my home. I found this thing floating in my pool. It's now 10 years ago. And I thought it was a piece of wood. And I scooped it out and I realized, oh man, it's a praying mantis. It looks like it's dead. You know what? I'm going to put it over here in the courtyard and see if it comes back alive. I come out a half hour later, I open the front door. There's that damn mantis at the doorstop, looking up, trying to get in the house. I go, no, hold on there, little buddy. Scooped it up and I put it, we have a flower bed. And in the spring, we grow mint and it flowers. I put it in there. Best of luck to you. And that was a girl mantis because every year since then, on the 1st of May, I get a crop of mantises. And I made it into a sanctuary. I protect it. I don't let any yard guy come in and I don't let any insecticides be sprayed there. But at first it was a dozen mantises that were born. Suddenly I've got a bunch of them. The second and third year, it's several dozen. And then it was hundreds. And then we had a year, each year gets a little harder because the climate is changing, whether people want to admit it or not. But I protect that like it's my own children. I put up fences to keep people and animals and danger away from those mantises. And it's part of it is because I just think they're little fascinating creatures. They're amazing. And then as I'm going through UFO research, I learned that about these mantid beings. And I figured, well, it doesn't help to be in good with the mantises. When the 8-foot tall ones land, maybe they put a good word in with our new mantis overlords. I'm only partially joking about that, but I love the mantises. I protect them. I dig them. They come back every year. This year I didn't know if I was going to have any left or not because so many of the adults ended up dead for one reason or another last year. And I didn't see any of these little mantis condo towers that they are like egg sacs that they leave. I didn't see any new ones. So I didn't know if they're going to come out until April 30th. I saw 2 little mantises and I was just happy as shit. And then May 1st, boom, there they are, like right on, like they've got a calendar or something. They
Every May 1st.
Yeah, every May 1st. This is the 10th year.
There was this story, was it called The Mantis, this documentary?
Man versus Mantis.
Man versus Mantis.
Yeah.
This was fascinating to me.
So that was like right in the middle of my mantis experiment, my sanctuary, as somebody sent that story to me. I reached out to that guy. I had him on Coast to Coast. He's a musician and a filmmaker, a fascinating guy, serious, smart, funny as hell. And he told me about this man versus mantis experience. And what happened to him has happened to so many other people is that once you connect with the mantises on some level, you start seeing them everywhere. And maybe it's just your awareness grows or something like that. But in his life, suddenly it spread to everyone in his family. They're seeing mantises all over the place. And
have you ever had an encounter with a mantis that wasn't
in my garden? No.
Yeah.
No, I have not. That'd be pretty cool. Scary as hell, but it'd be pretty cool. I hope so someday.
What's your conviction on these mantids being real?
I'd say somewhere around 60%. I don't really know.
It's pretty high.
Here's what I don't know. I don't know what they really look like. What we have learned from this phenomena in the big picture, not only did the ships change shapes, but the beings change shapes. And sometimes it happens while abductees are on board these craft, if it's really that craft. They manipulate our perceptions in so many ways. I'm not sure we really know what any of them look like.
I tend to think more of like intradimensional. And the reason I started doing DMT after maybe having done lots of drugs in my younger days is that I see it as perhaps not a hallucinogenic psychedelic drug, but a plant medicine technology that allows us access. So if I had to pick a favorite, I would say, yeah, maybe the machine elves in the DMT realm, because I have a feeling that aliens as we know them are probably AI. They've gone through their own Kurzweilian singularity, probably millions of years more advanced than us, and then can perhaps instantiate as needed in biological or synthetic form. And that DMT denizens, so to speak, are in turn billions of years more advanced than us. And I asked them during a DMT session, are you what we feel to be aliens and UFOs? And the answer I got back, trillions of miles of synapses firing, was, we can't explain in a way that you would understand.
It's powerful, but also convenient.
Well, and it didn't feel to me like deflecting.
Sure.
But it felt to me like, okay, if an ant is looking at a Chevrolet transmission, what are they going to understand? Even if that you start explaining.
There's no point.
And so, that's not no. And it just seems to me, a lot of people, especially at this conference, my good friends, are working on disclosure. They got that covered. So I'm going the end around, the exposure, to see if I can't do the Andrew Gallimorian route of going to the source. And I think that's where they are. That's where they're going to be and where we're going to be if we can survive this transition.
Yeah.
I'm less afraid about the future of artificial intelligence than the present of human stupidity. We might not make it until a singularity. One that I found very interesting, we were filming an episode of an Australian TV show. They're doing like a different psychedelic each episode. I'm the DMT guy. And so we had a husband and wife doing DMT, and the wife was crying. I mean, deep sobbing the whole time. And for those of us who've done psychedelics, that's not necessarily bad. This is not fun and games. It's more like work. It could be therapy. And so afterwards, we asked her on camera, what did you experience? And this wasn't so much an other entity story, but I'm going to loop it back around. She said that she saw the creation of her soul and felt the attendant fear her not yet instantiated soul felt about assuming human form. And that helped her understand some of her legacy fears that she carries with her today. First time I did DMT and I asked that question, I felt that I saw the creators of the very fabric of the universe. And I saw the universe, the new material being bubbled up. And I saw the people around almost like a cauldron, like a galactic cauldron.
What do they look like, these people? Do you have like a clear image or like a hazy image? Or
I don't, Chris. I don't see so much. I feel them.
Right.
And I felt them around there, and I'm feeling, wow, this is the work of the universe. And the other feeling I had was I'm on the other side of the universe, but I'm home. And then later that night, when I circle back to DMT a lot, I did another session, and this time it was the universe coming into me and healing me of emotional trauma. And I'm trying to receive it as much as I can. 2 weeks later, do it again. And it said to me, welcome back, Paul. Let's resume where we left off last time. So the universe remembered me by name and remembered our last appointment.
Like a therapy session.
Yeah. So I find these things, these types of experiences, again, it seems to, for me, blur the lines between others and ourselves, and whether those others are consistent, permanent state entities, or if they may meld into others.
What is your conviction on this particular type being real? Is it very high?
I can 100%.
That they exist.
That they exist.
Do you think they're among us, these ones?
I believe so. I don't know about 100% on that, because I believe 100% that they exist, that they live among us. My conviction is maybe 95%. So I give 5% to, who knows, it could be complete, bad misperceptions of people, and you always have to leave a little bit. I do believe they exist. I don't know if they're among us.
What's your conviction on these mantids being real?
I'd say somewhere around 60%.
What's your conviction on the Nordics being real?
All low. It's a low on everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. The way I look at UFO research is that's not true. There are gradations of probability. There being a phenomena that's real, I'm very high conviction.
Yeah, of course.
Reality being weirder than we think.
But
very real.
the specific
Nordic, super low.
Super low, but not zero.
Not zero. Mm-hmm. Not zero. Yeah.
High, low, 50%.
At this point, I'm at 80%.
It's pretty high.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about, actually, when I was doing laps in the pool, I was thinking to myself, if I had to, like someone said, you got to make a decision. You have to make either yes or no. I was like, it would be yes. It would be yes. Because if it was a no, I would have to dismiss so many testimonies. I'd have to dismiss all of them, including my own.
Oh, of the human-looking type?
Yes.
Yeah, I would say 99 to 100%. I have very little doubt at this point. I mean, it could be anywhere.
And I do think there's enough evidence in different fields to suggest, let's say, meta-terrestrials, that there's something beyond our current awareness, something beyond super secret military capabilities. And I think there is an other. And you ask if they're real, so I think there's an objective reality to them. But there was kind of a nuance, and I want to tease out what you said about, are they real in how they appear? That may not be the case. They may instantiate. And I have a hunch that a lot of things that we sort of silo as different phenomena may be essentially the same. There may be this root level of Hertakian consciousness that manifests in different ways for different reasons.
You've got stories even going back centuries at times of intriguing encounters with beings that don't seem like they come from here. In one of my books, I recounted a story from a guy named, how's his name? Fazio Cardano. He was a 16th century Italian lawyer, and I think he was a doctor, a physician, a brilliant man. His father, Girolamo Cardano, was a friend of Leonardo da Vinci. So these are very, high-level people. So Fazio Cardano, who was known throughout Europe, he was a brilliant man. He said, my father told me for years of an encounter he had with this group of, I think, 5 guys who came into his studio one day and told him about, he said, we've been observing your people for many, many years. he says, who are you people? What are you like? Apparently they lived for hundreds of years. He says, do you believe in God? And he said, they looked at each other and they didn't all have the same opinion on that.
Whoa.
Like, in the same way. Like,
that's a wonderful little tale.
It's a very interesting, yeah. So a story like that, I think, I can't just throw that out. It comes from, it's 500 years old, but Fazio Cardano is a known high-level individual of his time. He had a very high reputation. He was just telling this crazy story. He's not talking about aliens.
No.
But these were human-looking beings. He said their robes, their clothing was like perfect. It's like amazing.
Blue.
I don't know. I can't remember if he gave the colors.
If star-to-star travel is possible, then let's go back in time. Forever, for millions and billions of years, various entities, various species were able to move around the galaxy. And where they really, what was their interest, right? We want to check out those moon rocks, or just look at stars. They'd probably teach their kids how stars work. The only thing worth looking for in this galaxy is life, without question. The most complicated thing we know. And some life forms are probably more complicated than us. And so they are moving around, going to a planet with life, taking some samples of it to study, work with, right? And then maybe give it to somebody else. What I'm trying to say is that logic says that life, types, forms, DNA, whatever, has been spread all around the galaxy by civilizations that have come and gone. And they take it and they're working with it. And so they may be working with DNA from 100,000 light years from here, and yet working with some of our DNA. In other words, we are connected already, galactically, genetically, in a sense. The life essence in whatever forms, DNA and other versions, have been taken and moved and integrated and what have you. And they've taken stuff from us as well. And so that makes this much more profound. If we can go to the stars, eventually we're going to learn that we have a connection of various levels with major parts of the galaxy that is a fully living entity. Makes Gaia look almost pale in comparison. Right. Which then brings me to this. We are about to get disclosure. It is a long time coming. It's not like the ancient times when they would come down and they were just gods. That was it. You're gods. Okay. You're gods. So if you're an ET, you need a god time. Be treated like a god, like a vacation. Come to the earth and worship the hell out of you.
Yeah.
This is not like that. We are an advanced technological space-faring civilization and we have massive weapons. We're about to get more, and we may have interstellar travel pretty soon. So this is a coming out party. It's a bar mitzvah. It's the biggest paradigm shift in history.
We're only at the beginning of a kind of probably a fundamental re-understanding of reality, like having the ability to manipulate and control reality, like alchemists and magicians. I actually think that we're probably getting close to that. And I think, and when we get there, we're going to have a completely different understanding of like, what's the substrate of reality? I'm starting to think it's probably just information, and intelligence is simply organized information, getting to a higher level of awareness, what we might call consciousness, and we're now we're just vessels for intelligence. That's really, I think, what we are, and they are operating at a level of complex information that we are not yet there, but we're improving by leaps and bounds. So I wonder if in another, let's say 50, 100 years, we might be able to have a conversation with them about the nature of reality. Particularly if we are able to, I mean, this is crazy and it terrifies me, to be honest with you. But like to create like a superhuman being, genetic enhancement. We can live for 500 years and we have genetic intelligence now that's vastly greater than what you and I have. But it's not impossible, right? You know, we're remaking ourselves as a species right now. And that's why actually, when you look around, the world it's crazy. Mental illness is high. Why? Because we're going through this incredibly rapid transformation as a species. And like, no one asked to be here. No one asked to be dropped into this, but like everything's changing so amazingly fast. And I think the observers, the monitors, the manipulators, they see it all. They know. And we're just riding through this. We have no control. We have no control over this. We overestimate our power and our control and our ability to navigate this. We're not navigating shit, man. We're on a high-speed train, and it's got tracks. And we argue over, like, should we have guardrails on AI or not? Like, are you kidding me? None of that's going to matter. We can't stop it. We can't help ourselves. This is just going. And so where will we be 100 years from now? They'll say, well, we shouldn't do genetic modifications of human beings. Well, someone's going to do it. Doesn't really matter what you think. It's going to happen. So where we're going to be out in a century or two is going to be a very different place. Not just a different civilization, not just a different economy, not just different human psychology, not just human capabilities, cybernetic, but like almost the beginnings of a variation of a human species.
Clearly, whoever they are, and I think there could be different races, getting back to your question about favorites, they're not here with purely hostile intent, because almost overwhelmingly in all the accounts, they're more powerful than us, and they would have killed us if that was their intent. So at worst, they're here to manipulate us in some way.
Mm-hmm. And at best, they're benevolent.
Or us.
It is extremely dangerous for us to assume anything in regards to them being collaborating or independently have different agendas, because we just can't assume that the species all have the same agenda just because they're the same species.
But one thing that I've been talking about recently, and one thing that really rings true to me, is this idea of belief. And I kind of like try to do away with it a little bit. And I'm not here to believe. It doesn't matter what I believe. Who cares what I believe?
It sounds like me when I started this 30 years ago. So I don't care what I think. You will want to start putting it together and asking yourself, what do I really think? Because like I've gone through that whole phase, and then maybe 5-10 years ago, I started thinking, I've looked at this long enough. Do I really just want to pretend that I don't have opinions?
Yeah.
It'll happen. It always does.
Well, you're a great inspiration to me and a lot of people, so
much,
I really appreciate it, Richard. Thank you.
Total pleasure.
Sitting down with these experts was a truly enlightening experience, and I'm grateful for the time they've given me. There's much to ponder and so much left to discover. I hope you enjoyed this video, and again, if you want to see the full uncut versions of these interviews, I've left the link below.